The irony of John's life was that he had spent 40 years trying to be somebody, only to achieve his most profound impact on the world by becoming everybody. It happened on a Tuesday, the most unremarkable day of the week, a day flavored by the metallic tang of industrial machinery and the humid scent of boiling starch. John, a mid-level quality assurance officer at Apex Canning Co., had leaned just a bit too far over vat 412 to inspect a peculiar oily bubble in the beef slurry. The railing, compromised by 20 years of salt-heavy humidity and the slow, invisible rot of oxidation, gave way with a tired, metallic sigh. There was no cinematic scream, only a wet thud that was instantly swallowed by the roar of production, a brief mechanical struggle from the high-torque industrial shredders, and then the steady, rhythmic resumption of the canning line as it converted a human life into standardized units of nourishment. John was no longer a man with a mortgage, a mild allergy to pollen, and a half-finished crossword puzzle on his desk. He was 15% of the protein content in batch 9928B, spicy home-style chili. His existence redistributed into 1,200 identical tin cylinders. The transit of being. Lenny, a man whose spine was held together by caffeine, sheer stubbornness, and a lumbar support belt that had seen better decades, loaded the pallet containing John. He didn't notice that case 44 felt a fraction of an ounce heavier, nor did he hear the ghostly echo of a middle manager's concerns within the stack. To Lenny, the world was not a collection of stories, but a series of boxes to be moved from point A to point B, a geometry of labor measured in wooden pallets and shrink wrap. He whistled a flat, repetitive tune about a girl in Tucson, unknowingly serenading the atomized remains of a man who once shared his precise affinity for cheap cigars and the quiet dignity of a job done without complaint. "Heavy today," Lenny grunted to the driver, Big Sal, as the forklift blades withdrew with a screech. "Protein is dense, kid," Sal replied, slamming the heavy trailer doors and securing the latch with a finality that signaled the beginning of John's diaspora. Sal drove across 3 state lines, a king of the asphalt, steering 18 wheels of cargo through the dark. As he navigated the midnight stretches of Interstate 80, the vibration of the road acted as a mechanical sieve, shaking the cans and settling John's particles into a comfortable, savory sediment at the bottom of the tin. Sal looked out at the vast, dark cornfields, an ocean of green swaying under the moon, and felt small, a solitary spark in the void. He didn't realize that the very essence of human vulnerability was tucked away in his trailer, labeled for retail distribution at 2 for $5. The shelf life of a soul. In a fluorescent-lit aisle of a suburban grocery store where the air was chilled to a precise 55 degrees, a teenager named Kyle was stocking the soup section. Kyle was currently experiencing an existential crisis involving a girl named Sarah, a missed text message, and a dented fender on his dad's Camry that he was hoping to hide with a strategically placed bumper sticker. He slammed the cans of spicy home-style chili onto the shelf with a resentment that suggested that chili was personally responsible for the cruelty of the modern dating world. John sat on the shelf for 3 days. He watched the world through the warped reflection in the glass of the freezer aisle opposite him. He saw a toddler throw a tantrum over neon-colored cereal. He saw an elderly woman carefully select a single lemon, weighing it in her hand as if it held the secrets of her youth. He was a silent observer, a canned ghost waiting for his next incarnation, his identity now a barcode and a list of nutritional facts that failed to mention his talent for amateur carpentry. Then came Arthur. Arthur was a lonely man who worked in actuarial science, a professional quantifier of risk who lived his life in the margins of spreadsheets.
He liked batch 9928B because the label, with its warm colors and rustic font, promised a hearty meal for a hard-working man. He took John home, opened him with a manual crank that groaned under the effort, and heated him over a medium flame until the steam rose in a savory, unidentifiable cloud. As Arthur ate, sitting at a laminate table while the evening news buzzed in the background, he felt a strange sense of companionship he couldn't quite place, a warmth that went deeper than the temperature of the beans. He felt for a moment less like a statistic and more like a participant. He wasn't just eating dinner, he was dismantling the complex proteins of another man's life to fuel his own mundane afternoon, absorbing the physical legacy of a stranger to power his own heart. John was becoming Arthur's muscle fiber, his metabolic heat, and eventually his waste. The Great Return. The transformation of John didn't stop at the dinner table. After a brief, unceremonious transit through Arthur's digestive system, John entered the labyrinthine dark of the city's veins. In the humid, echoing tunnels of the sewer, John was stripped of his brand-name identity and his spicy seasoning. He was no longer spicy homestyle or John. He was reduced to the fundamental building blocks of the biosphere: raw nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Months later, a processing plant turned the reclaimed sludge into high-grade organic fertilizer, a dark, nutrient-rich earth that smelled of ancient potential. John rose again, translated from the language of meat into the language of chlorophyll. He climbed the sturdy, hairy stalks of heirloom tomatoes. He swelled within the thick, netted rinds of cantaloupes. He turned the sun's white light into fructose and fiber through the silent alchemy of photosynthesis. He was vibrant, red, and hanging heavy from a vine, a succulent manifestation of the man he used to be, waiting for the inevitable harvest. The perpetual motion. A street vendor named Elias set up his stall on a busy corner near the highway, where the air was thick with exhaust and the frantic energy of commuters. Among his wares were the tomatoes that contained the concentrated essence of John, their skins tight and glistening with morning dew. A silver sedan pulled over, its tires crunching on the gravel shoulder. The driver, a woman in a sharp business suit with a Bluetooth headset pressed to her ear, pointed at the basket with a manicured finger. "Give me the big ones," she said, her mind already 3 meetings ahead, calculating quarterly projections and daycare schedules. She paid with a crisp $5 bill, tossed the bag of tomatoes into the passenger seat, and accelerated away, merging into the gray river of traffic. As the car sped off, the sun hit the windshield at a sharp angle, creating a blinding flash of white light that momentarily obscured everything. Across the continent, thousands of other cans from batch 9928B were being opened in quiet kitchens, loud break rooms, and lonely campsites, each one a tiny vessel of redistributed history and accidental communion. The story didn't end with the car driving away into the suburbs. It couldn't. John was in the water supply, in the deep strata of the soil, and in the very breath of the woman driving the car. The world wasn't just something John lived in. The world was John, and John was the world. And batch 9928B was just the beginning of a cycle that would repeat with rhythmic, indifferent precision until the sun burnt out and the recipe for chili was long forgotten.